We move on to presumption fallacies. These are fallacies in which an assumption is made but not explicitly stated, and the assumption, when made explicit, reveals that the reasoning relies on this assumption and not really the explicit assumptions, that is, the assumptions that are stated. Moreover, the presumption that is made but not made explicitly so that it's clear in the reasoning is erroneous.
Now let's take a look at some examples. Government ownership of public utilities is a dangerous doctrine because it is socialistic. So, one of the problems here is that the conclusion is simply a restatement of the premise. Government ownership of public utilities just is one of the ways in which we define a socialistic government. And then there's the assumption that's not yet been proven, namely that socialism is dangerous. And we would want to know how so. So we need that to be proven before we can accept the rest of the reasoning. The next one, fox hunting is not cruel since the fox enjoys the fun. There is the assumption that we know what the fox enjoys, that we can know the mind of the fox. Suicide is a crime since it is a crime to murder. There is an assumption that suicide is murder. Not all people agree that it is. So it may be the case that suicide is a crime and it is considered to be an unjustified self-killing, which or an unjustified killing is murder. But the assumption that suicide is murder is unstated and is not something that everybody would necessarily, or that not everybody would obviously agree to. Sorry, I shouldn't have used the word necessarily in there. And then an exchange of dialogue from a novel. The reasoning goes something like this: there are spies in Gaza. The reason you can successfully accuse someone of being a spy is because there are so many spies. So the person who questions, you think there are no spies in Gaza, is assuming that there are already spies in Gaza. And so their justification, there are so many spies in Gaza, doesn't really get that person very far in the reasoning. There are a couple more examples that I think are really straightforward. These may be considered more cases of circular reasoning, where you start in the same place that you leave off. You restate the conclusion your conclusion is a restatement of the premises, just in other words. So we get the following in a motion picture. 3 characters engage in a dispute over 7 stolen pearls. One of the thieves hands 2 to the man on his right, then 2 to the man on his left. I will keep 3, he says. How come you get to keep 3, asks one of the others. Because I am the leader. Oh, but how come you're the leader? Because I have more pearls. And you can see the next question. But why do you have more pearls? Because I'm the leader. How come you're a leader? Because I have more pearls. And then a classic novel, Catch-22, from which the expression, oh, you're in a Catch-22 comes, gives us the following. Yossarian is pointing out, by the way, the Army's circular reasoning. He's not actually committing the fallacy himself. Let me get this straight, Yossarian says. In order to be grounded, I have to be crazy. And I must be crazy to keep flying. But if I ask to be grounded, that means I'm not crazy and I have to keep flying. There's no way, in other words, to get out of flying the missions. And here is another example of circular reasoning.
What is this supposed to mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, he's a fascist. The pirates...
Wait, why do you say he's a fascist? He's the president of the United States.
He's a fascist.
Do you realize how offensive that is?
I think he's a fascist.
Why?
Because he is.
Here's a cartoon that you have to think about just a little bit to get the circular reasoning involved here. So, if you'd like to jot down what you think the argument is, such that it is a piece of circular reasoning, do so. Send it to me via email, and I will take a look at it and write back to you with some sort of comment. And depending on how you articulate the reasoning and then how you analyze the reasoning, there will be extra credit for you on the next exam involving fallacies. Okay, our next fallacy is called complex question, and it is a fallacy in which someone asks a question, and yet the question is hiding a previous or implicit question that has apparently been asked and assumed to be answered. And so the person is left who attempts to answer the complex question in an untenable position. Here are some examples. Have you stopped beating your dog? If you answer yes, if you answer no, the inference is that you still beat your dog. If you answer yes, the inference is that you used to beat your dog, but you stopped. And you can see from the remaining examples how this particular piece of fallacious reasoning goes. Now remember, this is not a fully formed argument. Instead, the argument is implicit in the question. So just remember, you don't have to ask every question, you don't have to answer every question that's asked of you in such a way as to get yourself committed to a position that you would not otherwise endorse. A classic example: if elected, would you try to fool some of the people all of the time, all of the people some of the time, or go for the big one, all of the people all of the time? And the assumption, of course, is that you would try to fool people in some fashion. Let's move on to two related fallacies, false dilemma and false dichotomy. The latter, false dichotomy, occurs when someone presents two options as being exclusive and exhaustive, and you're meant to choose one of those as an inference. But the problem is that more than two options are available. False dilemma occurs when two options are presented, one of which is bad and the other one of which is really bad. And the idea is that you will choose the, quote, lesser of two evils without realizing that, in fact, other options are available, such that the dilemma is not real. From the stage play that was turned into a movie, A Few Good Men, we get, I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom I provide, then questions the manner in which I provide it. I'd rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, I suggest you pick up a weapon and stand post. Now, here, Colonel Jessup is a witness in a murder trial, and he is presenting a false dichotomy, which is to say, look, maybe one of my guys killed somebody, but you know what? We're doing really great stuff. Either you stop criticizing what we do and the way we do it, or if you're going to criticize, then go ahead and pick up a gun and become a Marine. The other example is a love it or leave it claim. It could be the case that you both love America and you want to criticize it and you don't want to leave it. It could be the case that you love America and decide to leave it, and there could be other options. Typically, these false dichotomy fallacies involve presenting the or as exclusive. And if you study formal logic, and when you study in this class propositional logic, you'll recognize that In logic, the or is not always exclusive.
There are some people who say it's the best yogurt they've ever tasted. And there are some people who haven't tasted it yet. Delicious, non-fat, authentic Greek strained yogurt.
So this commercial is interesting because technically we get what are called two existential claims. Some people who have tried Faye yogurt and loved it, and some people who haven't tried it. But the commercial's insinuation is that you are one of two groups of people, those who have tried Faye yogurt and loved it, and those who haven't tried it at all, the implication being that if you did try it, you would like it. But of course, what they don't talk about is the some people who tried it and didn't like it. And of course, it may be the case that the meaning of life just is cheese and crackers.
Let's look at another example of a false dichotomy. I thought this was quite nice, so I just went ahead and copied it from the website link you see below at the bottom of the screen if you want to check it out. I hope this video has helped you orient your thinking to the fallacies known as begging the question and its variant circular reasoning, complex question, and false dichotomy.